armed robberies that had been occurring the previous days in Hillsborough County and in the Plant City area. This was brought to fruition because of a cooperation that the Lakeland Police Department has along with the federal partners in Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office, Project Safe Neighborhoods. We had a couple detectives over in the area along with some ATF agents that were conducting surveillance on an individual by the name, last name was Cabrera, and we were finally located him in the Plant City area. Detectives tried to stop him, and that has engendered a pursuit that came down I-4 and ultimately ended up in a shooting on New Tampa Highway. I want to make a couple brief comments, and I'll hand it over to the U.S. Attorney Roger Hamburg to make some additional comments. But I want to talk about the partnerships that we have with our federal partners, Hillsborough County. I can tell you that a lot of things that we do here locally, particularly here in Lakeland, Polk County, Central Florida area, I don't think a lot of those things happen in other parts of the country. Maybe they do, but speaking with other police chiefs from across the country, I can tell you they don't have the partnerships and the cooperation that we get from our federal partners and local partners, and we're very blessed that we all get along, we all work together, and we all work very hard to take folks that are evil off the street. And make no mistake about it, there are evil people in this world, and they attempt to do harm. And I will tell you that if they're willing to shoot at a police officer and a federal agent, you know, they are certainly willing to shoot at just an innocent citizen or a bystander. So I think it was very important, the professionalism that was displayed by the officers, detectives, and federal agents that were, and the deputies that were involved in this incident. They went from being involved in a pursuit and a running gun battle with this individual to when it came to an end, they immediately switched over and started providing first aid. And that just speaks to the professionalism and the training and the cooperation that we put all of these men and women through that work in these different law enforcement agencies. So I couldn't be more proud of the way they handled it. Fortunately, no citizens were hurt, no law enforcement officers were hurt. The only person that was hurt was the individual that was inside the car and the bad guy, and I'll let Mr. Hamburg speak more to that. But I couldn't be more proud of the partnerships and the relationships that we have with our federal agencies and our federal partners and our county partners as well. So today we're going to go into a little more detail and tell you some of that, and at the very end we'll answer some questions. So again, thank you for coming, and with that I'll hand it over to the U.S. Attorney Roger Hamburg.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Taylor, for having us here today for this important announcement about another great case done by the law enforcement agencies you see here today. My name is Roger Hamburg. As the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, I have the privilege of serving as the Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer for 35 counties in Florida. Since taking office almost 3 years ago, I have prioritized working with our law enforcement partners to aggressively investigate and federally prosecute perpetrators of violent crime. These focused efforts have paid dividends. During my time in this role, my office has increased our number of violent crime prosecutions by more than 75%. There is one primary reason for this success, and that is the law enforcement agencies who are our partners on these cases. Every day, my office is privileged to get a chance to work side by side with our law enforcement partners to protect our community from those who seek to engage in violence. Today, I'm here to tell you about one of these successful prosecutions. And with me are representatives of the 3 agencies who worked on this case. You've already met Chief Sammy Taylor with the Lakeland Police Department. We have Chief Deputy Joseph Maher with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and Special Agent in Charge Kirk Howard with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The work that these 3 agencies did on this case, well, it was simply incredible. The defendant, Francisco Cabrera, was a violent criminal who engaged in a terrible crime spree. Over a period of just 6 days, Cabrera committed 3 armed robberies, a carjacking, attempted murders of police officers and federal agents, and a dangerous high-speed chase on I-4. Because of the hard work and dedication of the Lakeland Police Department, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and ATF, the defendant's crime spree was stopped. The defendant was arrested, and he was indicted by a federal grand jury and charged with every possible federal violation, including robbery, carjacking, attempted murder, and possession of a firearm. Cabrera was convicted. He pled guilty to 9 separate federal crimes. And last week, a federal judge in Tampa sentenced Cabrera to 38 years in federal prison for his crime spree. Let me tell you some additional details about this case and the outstanding work that law enforcement did on it. Francisco Cabrera's crime spree started on January 13th of 2022. On that day, he walked into Puffy's Smoke Shop in Plant City and selected a number of items. As he was standing at the checkout, Cabrera brandished a black pistol and demanded the clerk give him money from the register. During the robbery, Cabrera removed the magazine from the firearm in an effort to further intimidate the victim. That is something that he repeated again in another robbery. Cabrera's crime spree continued the next day. On January 14, 2022, at 10:25 in the morning, Cabrera entered Hazy Days Smoke Shop in Brandon. And just like in his prior robbery, Cabrera selected a number of items and approached the clerk as if he was going to be checking out. At the register, Cabrera pulled out a handgun and demanded money from the clerks. Cabrera once again removed the magazine from the pistol, showed the clerk the bullets, and said, "This is for real." After displaying the loaded magazine, Cabrera reinserted it into the pistol while pointing it at the victims. Cabrera's criminal conduct continued to escalate from there. A few days later, on January 17, 2022, Cabrera entered a Marathon gas station in Plant City and approached the clerk with a case of beer. He brandished a pistol while simultaneously demanding money from the cash register. Cabrera pulled the slide of the firearm, showed the bullet to the victim, and said, "Give me the money, or I will shoot you." 2 days later, on January 19, 2022, Cabrera returned to the same Marathon gas station. This time he committed a carjacking. He saw several co-workers from the gas station getting gas in separate vehicles. He approached the driver of one of the vehicles, pointed a gun at them, and told them to get out. As Cabrera attempted to leave, the victim's co-workers used one of their vehicles in an effort to try to block Cabrera from leaving. But Cabrera would not be deterred. Through the windshield, Cabrera pointed a black firearm at those individuals, threatened them, and they moved out of the way, and Cabrera fled. Hours later, detectives from the Lakeland Police Department and agents from ATF located Cabrera in Plant City. The officers turned on their lights and sirens and began their pursuit. Cabrera fled, tearing through Plant City, eventually getting on I-4 eastbound towards Lakeland. What happened next was an 11-mile police chase. During that 11-mile police chase, Cabrera traveled at speeds exceeding 100 miles an hour. Cabrera put many people in danger that day. He nearly crashed into a truck. He drove through red lights and into oncoming traffic, causing vehicles to take evasive actions, and he almost hit several other vehicles. If that were not dangerous enough, Cabrera repeatedly opened fire on police officers and federal agents as he was fleeing. In total, Cabrera fired approximately 8 to 15 gunshots at 7 different police officers. On one occasion, 2 officers were outside of their vehicles in front of Cabrera attempting to deploy stop sticks, but Cabrera would not be deterred. He drove straight at them, pulling his gun out of the window and firing at them, striking the hood of one of their vehicles. Out of concern that Cabrera was going to kill someone, and after determining that no other civilians or law enforcement would be in danger, an ATF special agent fired at Cabrera, striking him twice in his lower back. Lakeland police officers and ATF agents then surrounded Cabrera, who was still, true to form, resisting arrest. Police officers immediately provided Cabrera medical assistance, saving the life of the man who had just tried to kill them. The work that law enforcement did on this case in making sure this community was protected is really to be commended. No civilians, no member of law enforcement were injured during this crime spree. But make no doubt about it, Cabrera's criminal rampage endangered the lives of people throughout Polk and Hillsborough counties. To him, it did not matter who you were, whether you were an employee working a shift at a store, whether you were a person filling your tank of gas at a gas station, whether you were a police officer attempting to do a traffic stop, or whether you were just someone driving on I-4, no one was safe. Because of the outstanding investigation done by the Lakeland Police Department, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and ATF, Cabrera was apprehended and his crime spree was stopped. Cabrera was federally charged. He was convicted, and he will now be spending 38 years in a federal prison. The law enforcement agencies who worked on this case, well, they're to be commended. Given Cabrera's pattern of escalation during his crime spree, the work that law enforcement did on this case undoubtedly saved lives. This investigation is one great example among many of how local and federal investigators are able to effectively work together to protect our community. In the last year, my office has worked hand in hand with the Lakeland Police Department, the Polk County Sheriff's Office, ATF, and the State Attorney's Office on cases arising from crimes committed here in Polk County. And we've seen some extraordinary results. Working with our law enforcement partners, my office has federally charged over 50 defendants who have committed federal crimes in Polk County. Those offenses have included large-scale drug trafficking, possession of firearms and machine guns, money laundering, robbery, carjacking, bank fraud, and various shooting-related offenses. I'm here today to commend the agencies for their outstanding work on the Francisco Cabrera case, as well as every other case they've investigated in which my office is prosecuted in federal court. Investigations of this breadth and scope are not easy, nor are they always quick. These cases require meticulous work by excellent investigators to put together the evidence that will support prosecutions to combat violent crime. And that is what we have with the agencies who serve the people of Polk and Hillsborough counties. I want to commend them for working together as a team to develop the evidence that led to the federal conviction in this case and so many others that we work together. Through their excellent work and partnership, more than 50 defendants have been charged in federal court. Let this be a message to anyone who seeks to commit violent crime in this community. As you can see from the law enforcement agencies here today, and as you've heard from the incredible work that they did on this case, you will be investigated. And if you endanger the lives of our citizens and law enforcement, we will use every lawful tool that we have to hold you accountable for your crimes, no matter where you operate or no matter how you try to hide. And if you have violated federal law, the United States Attorney's Office will seek to pursue charges against you in federal court. We're united together in our mission to keep this community safe. I'd now like to turn it over to Special Agent in charge with the ATF, Kirk Howard.
Thank you, Roger. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kirk Howard. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the ATF Tampa Field Division. I'm proud to help U.S. Attorney Handberg and the other law enforcement officials make today's announcement and close a remarkable investigation. ATF is proud to join forces with our local partners on this case because it falls squarely within our public safety mission. ATF helps find and arrest the most violent criminals and puts them behind bars where they belong. In January of 2022, my division's Serial Pattern Armed Robbery Technical Apprehension Team, or SPARTA, group launched an investigation into Francisco Cabrera, an armed violent offender responsible for 3 commercial armed robberies and 1 armed carjacking across Central Florida in less than a week. On January 18th, 2022, the Sparta Group assembled a joint arrest team comprised of members of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, the Plant City Police Department, and the Lakeland Police Department to take Cabrera into custody on a federal armed robbery warrant. The next day, January 19th, the team encountered Cabrera in Plant City, driving a stolen vehicle identified through intelligence, witness interviews, and video surveillance collected during the robbery investigation. The operational plan included covertly following Cabrera with the intention of pulling him over safely and apprehending him. The team's plan, however, was short-lived after Cabrera spotted a police vehicle. Cabrera immediately fled, driving east into Polk County at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour during rush hour while firing blindly at officers who were in pursuit. The team's collective bravery, intestinal fortitude, and training kicked in. Although shot at repeatedly, The joint arrest team maintained its composure and restraint as it pursued Cabrera. One of our federal agents maintained close pursuit of Cabrera despite the barrage of gunfire and heavy I-4 traffic. As the approximately 12-mile chase entered a relatively low-density area, the agent made a calculated decision to discharge his firearm through his windshield to protect the public from Cabrera's reckless spree. Those shots wounded Cabrera twice in the lower back and, more importantly, provided the necessary time and space for the Lakeland police officers, ATF task force officers from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office to converge on the offender's vehicle, apprehend a very much still defiant Cabrera, and immediately administer first aid that undoubtedly kept Cabrera alive to this day. Impressively, no one was injured during this dangerous ordeal. Cabrera would later plead guilty to these federal charges: 3 counts of armed robbery, use of firearm in furtherance of crime of violence, armed carjacking, and possessing a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon. It's too early to tell what else Cabrera may face in his legal future, but I can confidently say the Floridians are much safer with Francisco Cabrera locked up in prison, where he can no longer threaten our communities. I'd like to thank the members of the task force, including some of the folks here today who were brave enough to go out and apprehend Mr. Cabrera. I appreciate your loyalty and your bravery during that. With that, I will turn this over to Chief Deputy Joe Morrow, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Sheriff Chad Chronister, it is my honor to be here as this is an example, a prime example of how collaboration and collective partnerships work in combating evil. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard a story that sounds like a movie. It wasn't a movie, it was reality. Task force officers, police officers, federal agents put their life on the line to apprehend an evil individual, Mr. Cabrera, as described just previously by my peers up here. I want to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Lakeland Police Department, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for their exceptional collaboration in this. 3 commercial robberies, 1 carjacking in 6 days. The federal warrant was issued 5 days prior. 5 days after that. 5 days into the 6th day. This is a wonderful, wonderful example of how collectively law enforcement agencies combat evil, and specifically violent crime, ladies and gentlemen. That is our #1 priority. You heard the U.S. Attorney say working collaboratively to enforce that and to keep this community safe. That is the only way that we can do that, ladies and gentlemen. Not the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, not the Lakeland Police Department, or not the ATF. Collectively, together, we combat that. Thank you very much. I'm so proud of each and every one of these officers, these task force officers, as they put an end to this evil display. Thank you.
Questions?
Mr. Hamburg, since you're here, you listed your accomplishments when it comes to violent crimes, in this case and others. With the election of Donald Trump, what can you say about your future in this position? Will you be trying to stay on?
So I have been a federal prosecutor. It'll be 22 years at the beginning of December. And for almost 3 years, I've had the privilege of serving as the United States Attorney. So every day I get a chance to serve in this role. It's a real privilege, and I appreciate it. And I'm really proud of the work that my office has done during the 3 years that I've served in this role. Our number of indictments is up 60%. Violent crime cases are up 75% or more. Immigration cases up 69%. Child exploitation cases up 70%. White collars up 53%. Drug trafficking cases up 33%. So what I can say is it's been a privilege to be in this role, and I will look forward to every day I get a chance to do it. But it's really the people who really do the work. I am the United States Attorney, but I know, and I've always known, I'm just a temporary steward in this position. And it's really the work of the people of law enforcement, the work of the people in my office who do that work, and they're going to continue to do that work. And I look forward to working with them for as many days as I have.
Are you expecting to stay on? What do you think?
I don't have anything further to say other than what I just said.
I have a question about the length of the
Cabrera? Is there anything significant about that, or is it common for a defendant with these types of charges to get that length of a sentence?
Well, in federal court, anytime someone is sentenced, the court will look at, and in this case, we charge, the applicable mandatory minimums when we can, and then what the court will do is they'll take account of the sentence. They'll take into account the fact, for instance, that this defendant attempted to kill members of law enforcement, put people in danger, and then what the court does is it fashions a sentence based on the individual facts and circumstances of the case. And because each sentence in federal court is individualized to the defendant, I don't really make assessments as to where it falls. I mean, I think 38 years is an appropriately long sentence for the conduct of Mr. Cabrera. But one of the messages I really want anyone in this community to know, and one reason we wanted to do this press conference was there was a lot of press about this when this happened. This was a terrifying incident. For people who were just driving on I-4 and having a car go at 100 miles an hour, firing a gun. And we want the community to know that because of the incredible work of these law enforcement agencies, no one other than Mr. Cabrera was injured. That is an incredible result. But we also want people to know that justice was done in this case through the 38-year sentence that was imposed.
Let me ask, the 38 years, does that have an option of early release on parole? Do you know?
The federal system does not have parole. So parole has been abolished. So a defendant in federal custody can get some amount of time off their sentence for good behavior, usually up to 15%. But we do not have parole in the federal system, so he will serve that 38-year sentence.
The other thing that was mentioned is that it was stated it was unclear what he may, or reference to what he may face in the future. Are there other pending charges against Mr. Cabrera that you're aware of?
We don't have any pending federal charges against him. I can't speak to what any state authority might do.
What does it say to you, if anything, that you pled guilty to all the charges?
Well, for us, because of the quality of work that our law enforcement partners do, whether someone pleads guilty or goes to trial isn't something I comment on. What I can tell you is that the work of these agencies, and we see it time and time again, the members of this community, the members of Hillsborough County, you should be proud of the law enforcement agencies who work and serve you, because, at least in my opinion, their cases hold up to the very highest level of proof that we have in our system, which is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And whether someone pleads guilty or goes to trial, I know that we can't have any better partners than the agencies that we have in front of us to seek justice in each and every one of these cases.
Was he convicted of crimes before this crime spree?
We'll have to get someone to get back with you on that. I don't know what his prior criminal record was.
I don't know. I'm sure he did, yeah, but
Yeah.
this wasn't his first time.
Okay. Big escalation.
No, it was a terrible escalation, and that's what. And there was so much work that gets done behind the scenes by these agents and officers. Because when I present the facts, I mean, it seems like an error of inevitability. Of course, it was the same person who did all of these things, but for days, it's a whodunit, and these agents and officers on this task force do an incredible job of burning the midnight oil to be able to track that down, and they really should be commended for what they did to keep everyone safe. All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.